last night's game was a tale of at least two different games, right? So the Flyers get things started last night against Montreal. They score a goal early. They end up with a two-man advantage. And they go from the two-man advantage. And the interesting thing was the sensational play of Trevor Zegras continues, right? He has like the spinorama backhand pass, sets up a goal, puts the Flyers up 2-0. You go, all right, two-man advantage. We love that. And then you still have some time remaining on the power play. And bingo, bango, bongo, they get another one. And so you start saying to yourself, all right, this power play is supposed to be one of the two or three things that you should be able to hang your hat on is going to be better than last season, right? So go back to the offseason. Go back to the things that we talked about on this show. I said the reason that I thought that the Flyers could end up being a playoff team was, one, the goalies couldn't be any worse than they were last year, where Ersson was in and out of the lineup a bunch. Kolosov was trying to adjust to the North American game. It wasn't playing in the AHL. Fedotov was still trying to adjust. I found no scenario where it could be any worse than that. It couldn't be. So it was like, all right, if you can get even like league average goaltending, you kind of figure, all right, that should be enough to get the Flyers a few additional points, certainly get them out of like bottom 5 territory. Then it's like, all right, what's the next most likely thing that could improve in a meaningful way, be better than last year, and ultimately help this team get the additional points that get you from like maybe being out of the top 10 of the lottery, right? And maybe getting into that bubble zone to the playoffs. And I said, well, it has to be the power play, because the Rocky Thompson horror show was so atrocious for years that like it just stood to reason things were going to like have to get better. They just had to. I could not accept a scenario where they were somehow going to get worse. So, all right, you go goaltending. Well, up until this past weekend, you'd say the goaltending had been pretty sensational. Vladar had not been roughed up, touched up at all. They have the game against the Maple Leafs. Vladar gets pulled very early in the third period. And you go, all right, maybe that's just the one, right? Like there's that old Spider-Man thing. Everybody gets one, right? Spider-Man, everybody gets one, right? Spider-Man, tell him. I guess everybody gets one. It was like that. So you go, all right, Vladar, let's take that one off the board. Kolosov looked good against Calgary. He also looked good in the, what are we going to call it? The relief work that he had to do against the Maple Leafs on Saturday. And so you go, all right, give it a little bit of time. Go up to Montreal. Let's see if Vladar can kind of rediscover his game. Let's make sure that Toronto didn't find the hole in his game, which appeared to be shoot high glove side. That's what Montreal got him with on Saturday. So you say, all right, let's see if when he takes the ice on Tuesday, are they going to go after him the same way? So Montreal, who got shut out in the first period, right? Gave up 3 goals in the first period. They flipped this game totally on its head in the second period. First goal, they shoot high, puck comes out. It's a simple goal. Second goal is on a power play, and it's a slapper from the left circle. And you go, all right, not ideal, but it's the man advantage. And you go, all right, is that shot necessarily on Vladar? I'm not entirely sure that it is. And you go, all right, there's like 6.5 minutes in the game. It can't possibly get any worse, right? It can't be. Like, there's no way they're going to tie this thing up. There's no way that they're going to like totally flip it. And they do. The third goal is the one that I think, if you're Vladar, you almost certainly want back, right? Because that's a puck that kind of bangs off, comes out. It's a very loose roller back out, and then it gets punched home. So that's not a great goal to give up. The fourth goal, I don't know who to exactly pin it on, but the fourth goal is one that you kind of go, you need to stop the bleeding. You need a save no matter what. You have a defenseman who kind of goes down almost like to a knee to try to block the shot. Maybe it messes with Vladar's line of sight. Not ideal, not great. So you leave the second period, and after entering the locker room with a 3-0 lead, you're now down 4-3. And that's the point where like some Flyers teams in the past would have rolled over and died. They would have just given up. That would have been the end of things. And maybe it would have just kind of had a momentumous, I don't know if that's a word, but there would have been like that. The momentum would have continued coming out of the locker room for Montreal, and maybe this becomes like a 6-3 game. Flyers get one like in garbage time with an empty net. 2 minutes or so into the third period, Delorier drops the gloves. Now, not everybody loves Nick Delorier. Not everybody loves the fact that Nick Delorier has a spot on this roster. I have been pretty vocal about how I think Nikita Grabenkin needs to be in virtually every game this season. I think that there's like a very real case to be made that Nikita Grabenkin should, without question, be in the lineup because he's young enough And he's also like a really solid bottom six forward. Like when you start to think about how do you make a team a legitimate contender long term in the NHL? How do you make a team a Stanley Cup contender? Like, yes, there is a ramp up period to get there. You don't go from like the doldrums of the basement, right, up to being a Stanley Cup contender overnight. It takes a little bit of time. There's a ramp up period. Nikita Grabenkin is only 22 years old. Right now, he looks like a dude who you could see having like a 10-year career in this league at least, playing bottom 6 minutes, bringing a ton of energy, getting into the greasy areas in front of the net, getting down and dirty along the boards, winning the puck battles that a lot of guys on this Flyers team over the last few years have just not wanted to get involved in. So to me, I go, if I'm going to make a lineup and I want to kind of have this meritocracy where you earn every minute, you're playing hard, and also I look at the long-term plan of like, we want guys to contribute to this team, be part of this culture, do things the right way. To me, Grabenkin's a guy who should be in there pretty much every night. So Delorier drops the gloves, and we know Delorier and Grabenkin have kind of been swapped one for one. You get Abels in there. There's kind of that little rotation in who's going to be on the fourth line on any given night. Grabenkin, of all people, is the one who scores the game-tying goal to force overtime, which, again, kind of comes back to my point. Like, Grabenkin does everything you want a bottom six forward to do. Even if you want to just say he's a fourth liner, you can. Dale Weiss somewhere is probably reciting the same thing that he said on that one podcast that we highlighted like a month ago, where he's like, there are guys in this league who are kind of, cast into being a bottom six forward who could honestly be like top line or second line guys. You look at Grabenkin, and I do think there's actually a little bit more upside there. I don't think that he's just your stereotypical, fourth line guy. He does have some skill to him. He's only 22. I think that there's a lot that he can grow into. But anyway, he scores to tie the game up at 4 to force overtime. Vladar has himself a decent enough overtime. Flyers get the final shot of the overtime. They don't convert. Things get interesting in the shootout because Vladar was an absolute monster in the shootout. And it's one of the things that, like, if you watched overtime last night, you kind of got the feeling that the Flyers knew that they had a chance to win in overtime, but they feel significantly better, oddly enough, about their chances of winning if a game goes to a shootout. It doesn't hurt to have the number one all-time shootout guy with at least 20 attempts in Trevor Zegras. I think he's up to almost 66% for his career in shootout attempts. So Vladar makes the first save. Zegras comes out and converts. Cole Caulfield fails to convert. And then you start going to yourself, all right, now all the pressure, in some way, all of the pressure then kind of falls back to Montreal because now you need 2 stops. Even a single stop isn't going to get it done. Mishkov goes up. It doesn't work out for him. He tries to, I think, go 5-hole on the goalie. It doesn't work out. So then Vladar, who's already made 2 saves, can ice the game with a save on the final shooter of the night. And he makes one of the most ridiculously athletic saves I can remember in a shootout in a long, long time, where he's kind of almost started to move across to his left. And then at the last second, he flashes his stick across the goal line and makes a stick save. So Vladar goes 3 for 3 on stops in the shootout, and the Flyers win. Now, it's kind of funny to think about a Flyers team wanting to play for the shootout. But again, when you have guys who can convert at as high of a rate as some of these Flyers can, like Zegras we know is great in the shootout, like unprecedentedly great. We have a lot of trust in Matvei Mishkov's ability to finish in a shootout. Brink has been pretty good from time to time. Couturier occasionally flashes a move that you don't expect him to. They have some guys who can convert in the shootout. Now, all of a sudden, it's like a thing that you've been afraid of for a very long time. And if you've been a Flyers fan, it's like the thing that gives you the most heartburn, the idea of going overtime. Now, all of a sudden, it's almost like a strength for this team. It's very, very interesting.